Hi, welcome to the 3D pen den. 3D pens are incredibly versatile tools. One of the groups using them are people making dolls, puppets, Pokemon, Marvel characters, video game characters, cartoon characters. You get the idea. For all these, you will need to know how to make a head. So let's look at some basics you may already know, and if you don't, here they are. Let me share a story from my art teaching days. Once upon a time, I was teaching a class on puppet making to a group of 8-year-olds. That was before 3D pens were even invented. We used polymer clay back then. And so will I in this video, because it's just easier to explain what I want to show you on a pliable material. I gave the kids some clay to make the head, planning to spend the whole first lesson on head making. They showed me what an 8-year-old considers important. Head is a ball with 2 eyes, smile, and a nose. The more precocious kids even put in some nostrils. And they came running back in 5 minutes. "Mrs. Gorman, I'm done." And Mrs. Gorman realized I better tweak my lesson plan. So how do you explain to an 8-year-old or anyone, ideally in one sentence, there is more to this head business? So this is the sentence I came up with. If it has a name, it has a shape. And where you put it matters. From this sentence came out our 3 sculpting rules. Number 1, if it has a name, it has a shape. Number 2, just like in real estate, it matters where it's located. Number 3, size matters, meaning it must fit on that assigned real estate plot. First, we established that heads are really shaped more like eggs than balls. It is helpful to work over an aluminum foil armature, whether you are working in polymer clay or 3D pen plastic. Make the aluminum foil egg pretty dense by rolling it on the flat hard surface or tapping it with a piece of wood so it doesn't cave in on you when you press against it while smoothing your sculpture. Again, this goes whether you are working in polymer clay or 3D pen. Here is our egg shape. By the way, it needs to be skewered a bit sideways. And we will cover it with a sheet of clay so we can stick all our parts to it. Now, this next part is fun. Check your faces and raise your hands. Does anyone here have a forehead? Kids will keep the shapes simple. Forehead, ears, upper eyelids, eyeballs. No one's gonna ask you, "Mrs. Gorman, what about the zygomatic arch?" As the students get older, they might, and then you better tell them. Also, we decided, after everyone touched their faces, that upper lip is really all the flesh all the way to the nose, and the bottom lip goes all the way down to the chin, and then you stick the chin on top of that. Now for the hard part. We can start stressing over where all this goes and how big it should be. We need to start by dividing this real estate first in half vertically and then horizontally. I'll make the lines a bit more visible for the video with a knitting needle. The vertical is obviously the midline of the face, and the horizontal is our eye level. Where these lines intersect, we'll stick our planned eye size and mark the edges of it. This will ensure you have one eye space between the eyes. Right above the eyes will be the eyebrow line, and where that cuts across the midline, there is an important landmark. We will take the space from that point to the chin and divide it in half. That will give us the bottom of the nose line. Now, the chin to the bottom of the nose equals the distance from the bottom of the nose to that mid-eyebrow point. And it also equals the space from the eyebrow point to the top of the forehead. Mind you, that is to the hairline, not to the top of the head. That's a bit higher than that. Heads are roughly 3.5 units tall to 2.5 units wide. So this distance will also fit from the midline sideways, with an extra quarter of the unit to each side. Then we'll draw a box from the inner corners of the eyes to the nose line. That's our nose box. Next, we'll divide the lower third of the face in half, and the mouth will fall just a bit above that line, with the corners of the mouth ending below the center of the eyes. Now that the locations have been established, let's see how the parts will fit in. The forehead will start at the brow line. Pretty soon the sizing becomes self-correcting exercise, because if your nose is bigger or smaller than fits in the nose box, we will just have to trim it. Put all the parts that live on the center line in first. You know, the parts that we have only one of, like nose and upper lip and lower lip and forehead, to establish the profile of the face so it looks right. And don't worry about the details of anything just yet. We are just trying on the parts for size, like garments, to see if we need one size bigger or one size smaller. Cut away anything that doesn't fit into the designated real estate plots. These cheeks fit, but I can see right away that they are going to be too tall. I'll have to trim those shortly. But first, just establish where the rest of this will go, especially the ears. Don't attach anything permanently yet. We may need to mess with it some more. When you turn your face sideways to the profile and draw a midline there, the ear will sit just behind that line between the lines extending from the eye level and the mouth level. As you can see, the face bulked up, so the back of the head is now a bit small, which we will fix shortly. Same on the other side, and we are ready for the second fitting. Now we will have to measure again. It is important to measure often, especially after you have covered all of your originally established landmarks. And yes, his skull is missing, as we could see from the side. So I'm going to give him a little yarmulke here. He might need even a bigger one eventually. As I said, the cheeks are enormous, so perhaps I will give them a little trim. Whenever you are doing something on one side of the face, immediately do the same thing to the other side so it stays symmetrical. That is still a little big, I think. Perhaps I will trim the other side a bit more and then this one again. Also, the nose could use a little trim. That's better. Once I'm happy with the size and the location of the parts, more or less, I will start integrating the parts, smoothing the transitions, and actually sculpting and shaping the individual features. I do leave out the eyes until the very end so they don't get in the way. Now, when I got to the eyes, I started to have second thoughts about the eyeballs and couldn't decide if I wanted just white eyeballs onto which I would paint the iris and the pupil, or if I wanted to go with the original plan of the polymer cane eyes. So whenever I'm unsure about something, I put in one of each and then cover one side and then the other, which allows me to see what each option would look like. I think I will go with the green eyes here. Let's measure again to see if things stayed where they are supposed to be, especially now that our landmarks got covered up. By the way, if you need a face proportion chart, if you Google it, you get about 12 million results, everything from Leonardo da Vinci onward. So there is plenty of reference should you want it. So is there still an eye between eyes? Do the threads still work on the face part? If he was not a fictional character, he may need a wider skull in the back. But I sort of like him being a cone head, so I will leave it. Anyway, I could fuss way longer with the details and clean up. But that's not the purpose of this video. So I will give him a bit of powdered color as a finishing touch, and I will bake him. By the way, the kids have done great after this head lesson. And we were getting way more varied and interesting characters. The king in the beginning of this video was one of them. Here he is baked. I may give him a bit more patina with some alcohol inks eventually. Maybe. As it is, I left out a big chunks of the sculpting process, so this video wouldn't get unbearably long. But if you would like to see more of the polymer sculpting progression, leave me a comment below. Now stay tuned for doing all this with 3D pen. And until then, go and make something.